once you have your template here, you're going to want to save it into your new folder. Now, I haven't created my folder yet, so I'm going to save it right now, and I'm going to zoom in on that using my magnifying glass. Okay, so let's talk about this. Okay, you're going to save it in your media drive. Find your student folder. Wrong one. In your student folder, you should have a CSS folder. In the CSS folder, you might have an image gallery, and you might have this background, all these files here. You might want to put a folder and just drop them all in there. That was the CSS list tutorial one. So I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to have it called, and I'm going to title this new folder CSS Layouts. Now, the thing is you want to put each individual layout in its own folder. And that way, if you're going to create a website for a client and you realize that they want a 2-column, you can actually just find the 2-column folder, copy it, paste it in a new location, change its name, and begin working. You don't have to start from the very beginning to code a style. So go to CSS Layouts, and in this folder, I'm going to create one more for the 1-column. Okay. So notice you got it in the CSS, you got your student folder, your CSS folder, CSS layouts, 1-column layout, and then just title it index.html. Okay, see that? Index.html, is that big enough for you? See? Yeah. There's our magnifier for us. All right, zoom out a little bit. When you're ready, 1-column layout, save your changes. And let's get my, where did the zoom tool? There it is. Let's go back to actual size. There we go. Okay, now we got our nice pretty color code. Now let's look at our whole layout wireframe. We have a page, a header, a nav, a main, and a footer. So, as I mentioned before, all of this is inside of the page. We're going to create a tag that holds the page. Now, that tag is a new tag, and we're going to use the layout tag, so we're going to use section. And anytime you divide your page up into sections, you should use the section tag, and in this case, it's our main section. So we're going to give it a section, we're going to give it a class, equals, and we're going to put on here page. We could use the word wrapper too. Page or wrapper, it's up to you. As long as you know what you're doing. I've called them page and I've called them wrapper before. So those are the two I'm most likely to use. So everything is in our page and we have identified it here on our layout. So we create a section tag. It begins and ends inside of the body. And we're going to go from top to bottom. So we're going to do our header, our nav, our main, and our footer. And guess what? We have a new tag called header. And that tag is used to be a header. Go figure. What do you think a header does? In fact, actually, I'll give you an overview of the various tags the next time we meet. And with definitions, and you'll try to match up the definition to the tag itself. Okay, so on the header, we'll just call it header. You don't have to give it a class, but I am going to do that. I'm going to recommend you do. I said you don't have to, but I recommend you do, and here's why. Guess what? You can have a header for any section. You can have a header for your footer if your footer needed a header. You can have a header for your main tag if you wanted to put head element. If you had a sidebar, you might have a label for the sidebar with the header for the sidebar, in which case you should use the header tag. So the header tag is just anytime you want to give information that is the primary information about the title or whatever information related to it. So yeah, then you just give it a different class.
Why do we use the section tag?
That was a great question. The question is, why have a section tag? Isn't that the body? Well, guess what? The body is the entire document. and that is from the left of the screen to the right of the screen. We can't put a body within a body. So if we want a centered layout, or even a layout that is part of the page on the left-hand or the right-hand side, we need a tag to hold it in. The body can't do that. So we create our own tag to fit everything inside, and it's the main primary section of the website. So and I called it page, but we could have called it primary as well, whatever. We give a class for it. And by the way, when we do a 2-column, I'm going to recommend we have a section tag that holds both of those 2 columns. And it's only because it's going to serve the purpose of containing them both and allow you to float one item, one column to the right, one to the left.
So technically speaking, you could have like...
So now we have our header, and let's go ahead and put a header 1 in there. And you can put a logo in there as well, and you can decide to use a background graphic for your logo, or you can actually turn your header 1 into a logo, or you can style it so your text and background logo are part of the header 1. It doesn't really matter. And then you'll just put on here 1-column template, and it's going to be centered, but we'll deal with that later. And then you get to decide. You can put your navbar in the header, or you can put it outside the header. It's up to you. Okay. I think from a style point of view, doing a horizontal navigation bar, if you want your buttons or whatever to really be incorporated into the header image and things, then stick it in the header. If it's going to be sort of its own sort of styling for a navbar, put it after. And if you're not sure, just choose one, and if you don't like it, switch it. There's really no right or wrong answer here. So I'm going to create a nav. And guess what? Just like you can have more than one header, and you can have more than one section, you can have more than one nav.
What's the nav do again?
It's set for navigation. So now, why could there be more than one nav? Well, you have your primary navigation bar, right, that goes along the top. But you might, on the right-hand side, and like a column, you might have a different navigation bar. I've seen websites where in their header they have 2 nav bars. One is like a login, register, about us, and then another one is all the pages on their site. So it's like the primary nav, and then there's like one they might call a global nav, where that's like just the generic links for everything. You might put a search window in there. So you could have 2 navs, or you can have 3 navs. You could have a bunch of different navs. So for that purpose, we're going to give the nav a class also, and we'll just call it main nav. Questions? Okay, we have our header, we have our nav, we also have a main and a footer. So, in order to get the main, let's give this what's called article. Now, this could just as easily be called section. So you have a section within a section. I'm going to call it article because it may actually be a real article, like Coastal Properties focus on quality and performance. Well, it's an article about themselves, so it could be an article. And we're going to give it a class of, what do we call that? Main. Actually, let's call it content. So we'll give the article a class of content, and we're going to put a header in here. Now we could give it a header 1 or a header 2. Either one would be appropriate with HTML5. I'm going to give it a header 2. Content section. And then we'll go ahead. I'll just keep going down here. After the article, then you want a footer. And you have a footer tag. Once again, you could have footers in your header. And you can have a footer in a sidebar, and a footer in content, and a footer on the whole page itself. So we could give it a class of footer. Or you could give it a class of main footer, whatever. What you call the class is really not a concern of mine, but while you're following this tutorial, you might want to use the ones I use so that it's easier on you. All right, so what we'll do is we'll add just a few more tags, but this is the structure you see here. And I'm going to collapse these for a moment so you can see the relationship of everything. We have a section with a class of page. That's everything inside of it from top to bottom. We have a header, a main nav, content, and a footer. So we use the header for the header, nav for our nav bar, article for the main area, and footer for the footer of the page. Okay, does that make sense to you all? Okay, I'm going to get rid of that side picture because I think at this point now let's just focus on our code. Now I'm going to give you a couple other things. In your nav, we need an unordered list of links just like you did with your list tutorial. And here's the pattern. Link. Okay, so your unordered list of links, we'll start with that, and we'll paste that about 4 times. I just did a copy and paste. I highlighted this line of code. I did Control-C to copy and Control-V to paste. So that's why I went really fast here. So on here, let's make the first link be to the home page, and that'll be index.html. So write home right here. Instead of link, we'll put page 1, page 2, and page 3. Okay, we got our 4 links in our main nav. Scroll down a little bit. On our footer, let's add a paragraph inside of our footer. And on the paragraph, we'll put designed by href equals. Now, we're going to do an email hyperlink. And in order to get a hyperlink to open up email, you got to write mail to. And then a colon, and then the username or email at, well, we'll put username at email.com. You put your own username, email. Actually, let's do it this way. We're at Hillsborough School District, so let's put hsd.k12.or.us. So we put mail to, and you just put your own username here at hsd.k12.or.us. Designed by me, your name here. And then let's add one more piece here. Let's do the copyright sign, which is unsigned copy semicolon space 2013. Zoom out a little bit here so you can see the full code for our body. We have a section. Inside the section, a header with the header 1, a navbar with an unordered list of links, and then we have an article with a class of content, a little paragraph or a little header to show us that, a footer, and a paragraph inside with our legal copyright information at the bottom and contact.
Why'd you make it href?
Href because a hyperlink requires a hypertext reference. And if we want to make an email link where you click it, it opens up email, you use href with mail to colon and then the email address.
Did you say like how to contact?
The last question is, what does that and copy semicolon do? Well, let's take a look at it. We'll launch it in Chrome. Okay, so let me do that one more time for the video. We have this and copy semicolon. This is called an HTML entity, and this is how you get symbols on a web page. And if you look at the website, hold on a second, you'll see that copyright symbol is highlighted there. I'll just zoom in on it. There it is. So to get the copyright symbol, you just put the and side, copy, semicolon. There you go.